describe Dolph as he's a serious composer, but who has grounding in the church. And that I say it that way because you can tell there are musical expressions from church experiences. He's incorporated that into his music, into his songs, particularly. I mean, he's brilliant. I mean, in terms of the originality of each of the songs, no two songs sound alike.
Adolphus Hailstork talks about Paul Laurence Dunbar as his artistic predecessor, his artistic ancestor in terms of the duality of being an artist in this field and being Black. And it just resonated with me so much.
I had just come in contact with Bill Doggett, who is the agent for Adolphus Hailstork. And I started listening to a lot of his music, and immediately I was like, this is somebody that I have to program. I have to be a part of the music that he's creating. Such rich writing. He utilizes the dissonances in a way that's challenging and crunchy and intricate, and yet you sing on top of it with sincerity and truth, and the melodies are beautiful and powerful and exciting and passionate. But I think he's one of our most exciting composers. It's just so high quality. It's comparable with all of the best. There should be no conversation of this is a great Black composer, this is a whatever. He is an excellent composer.
Dr. Adolphus Cunningham Hailstork was born on April 17, 1941 in Rochester, New York. He began studying music in childhood and focused on his composition and piano skills throughout high school. Hailstork's mother was herself a musician and encouraged her son's studies. As a teenager, the young composer was a member of Albany High School's choir and orchestra, the latter providing his first taste of commissioning works.
We had a very good high school. We had an excellent high school choir, excellent high school orchestra, and I played in the orchestra and I sang in the choir. And it's very important because that's where I started writing music, and the choir and the orchestra director said, if you write it, we'll play it. And that's how my composing career began. I sang, played violin, took piano lessons, took organ lessons. Yeah, I did all of that. Yeah. Oh, I was absolutely encouraged. My mother sang, and she always encouraged me in the music. So, and that's really about it. I mean, once I got involved in fact, she introduced me to got me classical records, and when I learned classical music, first things I was listening to the Beethoven Ninth and Mozart and Rossini overtures and the whole nine yards. I just fell absolutely in love with classical music. I started singing in junior high school. I also sang at the Cathedral of All Saints in Albany. That was a very, very important influence because that's where I started piano lessons. I started organ lessons. That's where I learned to read music and sang in the choir. The cathedral was, it's like a fundamental part of my whole raison d'etre,
Upon graduating high school, Hailstork attended Howard University, a historically Black institution, where he studied with composer and future director of the School of Music, Mark Fax. After attaining his bachelor's in music theory, Hailstork spent a summer in France studying with Nadia Boulanger, world-renowned composer and conductor, noted for teaching some of the greatest classical composers. Dr. Hailstork continued his formal education studying at the Manhattan School of Music under Vittorio Giannini and David Diamond.
David Diamond was very important because he got me to start thinking like a composer rather than as a theorist. My first college degree was in theory, and it has lots of rules. But he started loosening me up, and he would say things like, "Who says?" And so, in breaking away from the rigidity of theory practice was very good. And I so I Nadia Boulanger was the important thing that with Nadia Boulanger was a sensitivity to hearing better, listening better, so that you were very concerned about the disposition of the sounds in your palate, and so that's that was a major influence, of course. Once you have been exposed to her, every word she ever spoke stays in your mind. She was a very charismatic person, and she was 75 when I was there, but she was extraordinarily charismatic, very influential type of person, very persuasive. So it was a great experience to study with her. There's another teacher who has always had a big impact, who doesn't get much mention, but I remember her. Her name was Ludmila Ulela. And you can look her up. She used to teach at Manhattan School of Music. And she taught analysis, and her ways of looking at a composition were very influential. For instance, the principle that, the way that you put it down on paper the first time is not automatically the way it should be retained, that you might shift things around. Most people don't think like that. Usually, well, the way it pours out of me is the way it's going to be. No. You start thinking that's like a songwriter. But when you start thinking like a composer, then you are actually composing, which really means the distribution of sound and organization of sound, and not automatically just letting it pour out of you like vomit or something. It's a keen mentality brought to the process of writing, and she was very influential that way.
Adolphus Hailstork is lauded as a brilliant and prolific composer who truly understands how to write for the voice. His rich and intricate writing, coupled with the powerful text and topics he chooses to explore, makes him a favorite among professional musicians.
Well, there are general principles about writing for this specific voice type. Now, the most unusual one for me was Daryl's, because I had never written for countertenor when he asked me to, and I thought, oh, this is an interesting challenge.
As I say to him, as I say to every composer, I will pull their coattails and say, "What have you written for countertenor?" And they say, "Oh, not much." I said, "Well," I said this to Adolphus Hailstork. I said, "Well, Dr. Hailstork, you're not writing in the 21st century if you're not writing for countertenor, because we are here. We are a legitimate Fach, and there are a lot of us that do very well and that sing well and could render service. And to suggest that I've written for every voice type but soprano, you would certainly be saying, well, I need to pay attention because I've only written for mezzos and tenors and baritones. I should write something for soprano. For you to overlook countertenor when this is really the golden age of the countertenor. Who knows how long it will be? There was a flowering, and there may be a decline where there's less activity of countertenors. Get hit while the be relevant. Mm-hmm. Relevance in the 21st century includes writing for countertenor. Has to. So what happened with me and with Adolphus, I presented this at the 2012 conference. We had done a number of his works, and they were very successful. And I pulled him aside, and I did ask him, "What have you written for countertenor?" And his response was, "I haven't written very much," and I did make that same response. But then he said, "Well, what poetry would you have me recite?" And I recited County Cullen's "Yet Do I Marvel." I recited the entire poem for him, and a week later, he presented me with "Yet Do I Marvel," which is, I mean, this amazing piece. What in the world? So, it's not that he couldn't, it's just he hadn't thought to. And he wrote very specific stuff that sits the way that it should sit in a countertenor voice.
he did give me guidelines as to register the range limit of his voice and where the breaks came and stuff like that. And sometimes singers will do that, and sometimes I'll ask. I try to be more concerned about those things now in my old age than I used to be. I mean, to me, it's just writing for the voice. I knew the voice. I sang myself, and I was not particularly concerned about the middle passage of the voice and the transfer in the head voice and all that before. Now I am, and I try to take that more into consideration.
I've had the honor of having 3 songs written for me by Adolphus. The first one was Who is Sylvia? Sylvia Olden Lee was the first African American at the Metropolitan Opera. She was there before Marian Anderson as a coach. And she was a part of the organization called National Association of Negro Musicians. And she was a vital part of that organization. So when she died in April of 2004, they commissioned Adolphus Hailstork to write a composition in honor of her for the July 2004 convention, which I thought was unbelievable. And they asked if I would be the soprano on the project, and it was for soprano, violin, and piano. And it was just the most fascinating thing to me to watch how we put the piece together. So the text was Who is Sylvia? He chose the Shakespeare Who is Sylvia? Perfect. He did it in English. But then he writes a very operatic part for me. The piece is about 8 minutes long. And at the end, it has a cadenza between, for the voice. And it's this real operatic, tough coloratura cadenza. And then it goes into a gospel jam at the end, and it ends almost with this wailing. And it's like calling the ancestors up. It's really amazing. The piano is written in a gospel style. So it starts with doo-da, ba-da, chum-ta-da, ba-chum-cha. The violin is a blues style. So you would think these 3 together with this text, there's no way this is going to work. And it is the most extraordinary thing. And the reason what he was trying to show was her grounding in several worlds. She was very much the expert on spirituals, while she's also coaching at the Metropolitan Opera. And so he's putting together this combination. It was really an amazing experience to have that creation. And when I asked him about the piece, I said, wow, you captured her quirky spirit and jaunty personality. And he said, I never met her. He said, I was capturing your spirit. He incorporates the performer into the piece that much. If he doesn't know the person, which he said he'd never met her, he didn't have any idea what she was like, but he captures all aspects of her as we talked to him about who she was. And I didn't realize our conversations were his only frame of reference in creating this piece.
I teach a whole semester on writing for the voice because most people don't know a thing about writing for voice. And they think that if they played the piano, they automatically can write for the voice or something. And no, I mean, one of the things I put on my sheets of paper that I hand out to them, remember, singers have to breathe. And then, you don't keep them in extreme registers for much of the time, extreme high, extreme low, stuff like that. And and I teach a whole thing on the sensitivity to text, how to analyze a text, and how to and the placement of vowel sounds, et cetera, et cetera. It's a big, big subject, and I love the subject. And so writing for solo voice and writing for choir are two of the most satisfying things you can do. I happen to love writing text, setting text, because there's a text has a meaning to it, or descriptive. See, I go into this, I mean, are you describing something? Are you emoting about something? I've only in the past couple of years had a repulsive text. Was it repulsive, or did he? Is the subject that was repulsive? I had a person. It's a guy at Yale. And he said, "I want you to write a song on hatred." I said, "No way, I couldn't do that." So I mean, I'm an emotional person, and I write emotionally, and I'm just not going to tackle that. Leave that for politics. So often I challenge singers, and I say, send me a text and I'll set it. Because I have I don't mean it's arrogant, a joking way of saying I could set anything, even a telephone book. I just have a natural affinity for setting text, and that's because I grew up singing text. I grew up, you start as a voice soprano, you sing a lot of words, and those words have meaning, and that's so setting text was a natural thing for me to do. Everybody, to me, if you make up a song in the shower, you're making up something. I mean, it's just the difference is that we composers, we write it down and try to think it's important or something. But everybody makes up songs. At least I always thought they did. But it's a natural gift.
So my anthologies are just I call them for high voice instead of soprano, because many of them could be done. It's the same songs that we're recording. My CD, there are 2 CDs now. It's going to be Summer Life Song is one, and Songs of Love and Justice is the other one. And Song of Love and Justice is actually to the text of Martin Luther King, and is the only orchestrated piece on the CD. But what I did with the anthology, so I'm just dealing with the soprano rep. He did 6 songs for harp and soprano, so they're in one piece. And it's, like I said, high voice and soprano. That's one volume. Another volume is the 2 songs he wrote in French. So deux chansons. So it's really cool with clarinet. That's in another one. The third is sacred songs. There were it's like 8 sacred songs, including an Apache prayer, which I really love to use that for a wedding. There's a couple that are from the Bible. I can't think of, Song of Ruth and Song of Mary are in that anthology. And then I did one that is chamber music. So we did this really interesting set called I've Seen the Day, which is for soprano or high voice and string bass is one piece. Then there's a piece that is for voice and viola, but the voice and viola start at different points. So the viola he doesn't tell you where to line up at all. So every time we recorded this, we ended at a different point, which is kind of the point. It's very interesting to listen. I almost wish we could show several different versions, because it's quite interesting the harmonies you get when you do it. That I guess that was his chance music phase, he said. And then the third piece is Who is Sylvia is in there. And then the last anthology that we haven't finished has things like Songs of Love and Justice, the piano version instead of the orchestral version, and all these wonderful songs that I found, they're all together in an anthology. So that's how I broke it up, trying to do, those that are interested particularly in sacred music, it's all together, or chamber music gets together. Theodore Presser has pages and pages of Adolphus Hailstork's work. It's like 15 pages of works if you go on their website. So he is probably one of the most prolific composers living today.
I started in 56, 57, so on. So how many is that? Do the math. Well, okay, we're up to 2000. So at least 50, 53 years or something like that. I think 60 years, 63 years. And my postgraduate school pieces were a hell of a lot harder than my current writing. They're harder in showy ways that didn't have to be that hard. Yeah, since you come out of grad school and you're filled with grad schoolitis, and every trick you ever heard or exposed to in grad school you want to try, and you don't care how hard it is, and you don't care whether it's suitable for a practical singer or a practical performer or a practical orchestra. You just want to do everything you did in grad school. And now, God, after years and years and years since grad school, I got out of grad school in 71, then I have learned to listen to the performances, learn to listen to the people working on a performance, learn to be sensitive to the abilities of ordinary people. Yes, I've changed to a more practical composer. I like to work on lots of pieces at the same time because I take days off one, and that's good because then they ferment, and there. But I won't get to them till tomorrow. And so, I mean, today was devoted to my most pressing project, which is a piece called Tulsa, 1921. And I don't know if you know about Tulsa in 1921, but a large, very affluent community of African Americans was massacred in Tulsa, Oklahoma in 1921. And the Liz Player of the Harlem Chamber Players asked me if I'd write a piece on that. And they wanted to get a fantastic mezzo-soprano, world-class mezzo-soprano named Janai Bridges to do it. And I said, yeah, I'd love to do that. The Tulsa thing was only discovered about in the 90s. The 1990s, it just discovered. Some people knew about it, but it was not historically obvious to everybody until the 1990s. And now they're still excavating graves. You may have read it in the paper recently. They're still finding and excavating mass graves. And I get this is the kind of thing that gets me really riled up. And I just tore into that piece. And I'm pleased with it. Knee on the Neck. Piece that's in commemoration of George Floyd. That's a huge project. Woodwinds, triple woodwinds, full brass, large strings, full symphony chorus, 3 soloists. Now that's a piece I'm not going to hear very much, but I hope I can get a premiere out of it anyway. It's but I've been working on that the most before Tulsa came along. Tulsa only came along when a couple of months ago, 2 or 3 months ago. And that was one of those things. My colleague and friend Herb Martin wrote the text, and I went right to it and wrote it out. So the piece got sketched really quickly, which is what I do. And then I'm slowly revising it. And so I hope to send them a polished product by the middle of December. That's been a joy to write, because I knew I was writing for a world-class singer. So it's a whole new genre in I don't know if in classical music, but definitely in African American classical music, which I'm calling protest music. You know, I mean, you can't just keep calling things dithyramb and concerto for this, and all kinds of stupid things. No, there is a message that we can get across, and we use our art to say something. That's all.
Yeah.
I've written a lot of pieces called American such and such, but sometimes I get so fed up with things that I'm not going to forget my people, and I will do something to celebrate and to honor and to pay homage to the problems we've had too. I seldom revise. You know, it's something I borrowed an idea from Shostakovich. Shostakovich was once approached by some conductor or musician in the orchestra and said, "But maestro, that's not working." And he says, "I'll fix it in the next piece." And and I love that response